I'm here today with who I would consider my good friend, Elissa Goodman, and a holistic nutritionist. And more importantly to me, of the 5 people in my family, 3 or 4 of us see you in all different ways. And you have been a really huge influence on all of our lives in my home, my actual home, and have changed the way that our family runs, which is kind of interesting, and the way that we think about health and also the way that we take care of ourselves as individuals and as a unit. And so that's pretty awesome. But let's start It is. But I know you have I've heard it, and you have an incredible story of how you got to be to where you are today and why you've gone down the path that you have. So will you just tell us about that?
Yes. I will shorten the version, and the long version and the short version. But
I like them all.
I know. When I was born, I was born with a low white blood cell count. Mm-hmm. And in those days, which I'm 64.
Which is insane.
64 years ago, they didn't know what to do with that. Yeah. They were just like, get more sleep. They didn't even know about less stress or food or supplements or vitamin D or sun or any of that. So I got sick quite a lot growing up as a kid. And I had 2 parents that were like you, movers and shakers, like, like absolutely moving, mountains and like working really hard and working out and just basically never tired ever. And I was always tired and always getting sick, and they weren't. And I was like, wait, what is wrong with this picture? That kind of sucked that I was always sick. And
I've actually never asked you this. When you say you were always sick, what does that mean? Did you always have a cold? Did you always get strep throat? Like, what exactly did it mean?
Strep throat, tonsillitis, mono, anything that came down, cold, allergies, gut issues, like just constantly having some kind of health issue.
Okay.
And basically, I felt like, so I didn't just feel physically not well. I also felt mentally, because my parents, were so different than I was. I was like, wow, am I ever going to be able to succeed and like live a life like they do? Because their life was amazing. So I had both things going emotionally, was beating myself up for being tired all the time and not really being able to measure up to my standards or their standards. And then the physical part was really hard. And then I grew up in Arizona and moved to New York and worked in the advertising business. And of course, in the cold weather, and got sick more often than not there, and met my husband and basically said, you know what, we need to go back west to sunshine and to like slower life and better living, and came to California. And the minute I came to California, I got diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I was getting a massage.
And how old were you?
I was 32. So I was getting a massage sitting upright, and the masseuse found a lymph node on my collarbone, which is very unusual. You're not supposed to have swollen lymph nodes, on your collarbone. Your neck is one thing, you're fighting something. But she said, go get that checked out. So that was a lifesaver. That
is kind of amazing, because I don't think I've ever had a masseuse with that kind of. I've had one who would potentially even have that kind of intuition. So that's pretty.
That was amazing. Yeah. That was a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Come to find out, it was Hodgkin's. It was an early stage of Hodgkin's. And then I went to see a lot of doctors. It was quite a process. It was not a fun process because the early stage, they still wanted me to do quite a lot of treatment and scared the living daylights out of me, which was kind of sucky in terms of how the medical community treats you.
Yeah.
You go down the rabbit hole and maybe you don't even need to. I went to see this oncologist at St. John's, and we sat down and he looked at my slides and he said to me, are you happy? Do you love your life? Or do you love your job? I was working at the time. Do you, what's going on emotionally with you? What's going on with your stress? What's going on with your sleep? And I was like,
is that the first person that had ever asked you that?
Yes. That was 32 years ago.
Yeah.
That was crazy. And I mean, still to this day, doctors don't ask that.
No.
And I was like, I am so unhappy. Moving to LA was really hard. I was working for Vogue magazine. I absolutely hated it. It was Devil Wears Prada. The pressure there was intense. It just was a very hard adjustment. And I didn't even know what happy meant. I didn't even know what inner peace felt like. I had never been taught that. It was always about, okay, we're going to move fast, climb the corporate ladder, make as much money as we can. That whole lineage.
Just go.
So that was a lifesaver as well. I basically went into therapy and read every self-help book I could get my hands on, did yoga, really try to be out in nature. I really changed my life then. And then I also changed my diet. So I also stopped eating sugar because the sugar was helping me fuel and the caffeine was helping me fuel. So I stopped that and I started juicing and, eating very healthy. And I feel like I did half the radiation, did no chemo. They wanted me to, and then I ended up healing. So I was really lucky.
So I have a couple questions because I've never actually stopped you and asked you. I've just listened, which is, I could listen all day to you and talk about your story, but I think there's a few questions that are important to ask. One is, actually, the first one's not a question, it's a reaction, which is the fact that you didn't get defensive when the doctor asked you, are you happy? Says a lot about you and says a lot about that moment in time, right? Yeah. That you weren't like, what do you mean? Like, how could you ask me that? I mean, I feel like, especially in your early 30s and with that mentality of I'm going to go and I'm going to be and I'm going to do, that's a major question to be asked by also someone who's essentially your life is in their hands and in a position of power. So that says a lot about you as a human and a person and a woman that you could sit there and take it in that moment and be truthful and honest, not just with him, but with yourself. Yeah. You did some of the treatment recommended and you got healthy. And you ate healthily. So how did you know what that meant? Because this is also 30 years ago. So how did you know what healthy meant? I mean, I feel like that was sort of the time of Snackwells, which was not healthy, right? Which were all over my pantry growing up. This sort of like, don't eat sugar, eat fake sugar. Or excuse me, don't eat fat, eat fake sugar. And I mean, the opposite, low fat and a million chemicals. So how did you know what was healthy? And even juicing was a tricky thing then, because juicing could have meant a juice, 30 ounces that was basically drinking sugar, which I know you weren't doing.
Like Jamba juice.
A Jamba juice, which I thought was amazing. And I realized, why am I gaining weight when I'm only having these juices, while I'm drinking 7,000 calories?
Well, that was another fantastic story because my mom, growing up in Arizona, had asthma really bad. And she found this place in Tecate, Mexico, Rancho La Puerta. Do you know it? Okay, so Golden Door, Rancho La Puerta. So in my teenage years, she would take like 20 women twice a year to Rancho La Puerta for 7 days. Wow. They go off the grid because there's only one phone on the property. They grow their own food. It was vegan. They exercise. They, no televisions in the room. I mean, I went, I hated it. By the way, because I was like the only young teenager with these older women. And I watched these women transform in 7 days. They were different women. From the time they came in to the time they left, everything about them was different. How they felt, their mentality, just weight, everything. They loved it. And that's how I think I went back to those days. And I went back to the plant-based eating, and the juicing was happening then. I mean, they were way ahead of their time.
Explain your juicing, because it's not a juice that typical. I think some people are thinking about. Yeah.
Right. It's not the Jamba. It's the greens. I did drink carrot juice and beet juice, which is very high in sugar in those days. But I'm a very much of a green juice girl, like all kinds of cucumbers, celery, parsley, cilantro, romaine, spinach, any kind of greens with lemon and ginger. That's my go-to. I wasn't as good then. I have been better in the last years. But I basically, it was one juice place in LA and it was down the street from my apartment where I live. Amazing. So I got lucky. I was introduced to, LA had so much. The yoga was beautiful here. The juicing Mrs. Gooch's before Whole Foods. I mean, it was just really lovely. And the weather was great. So I just felt like, and also there were naturopaths and I think more, like doctors that were practicing, alternative methods. And I also was friends with Dr. Andrew Weil. So that was another connection that I had since growing up. And he helped me a lot with supplements in those days. So he's one of the first functional medical doctors, a medical doctor that turned functional, that was trained in Eastern and Western medicine. He started his school at University of Arizona. That was the first functional medicine school. Oh, wow. So I was really lucky. I had all this stuff at my fingertips. And I also, the story of my husband, 11 and a half years later, he got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which was quite a shocker, and ended up dying a year and a half after his diagnosis, after 2 stem cell transplants.
God. And how old was he?
He was 45. I know. So The interesting thing, I think that was the difference between the two of us, which a lot of people always want to know, is that when I got the diagnosis, I didn't think cancer was going to kill me. I felt like this was like a wake-up call for me. I'm surprised that I did, even at 32.
Yeah.
But I felt so lucky and blessed to change my life. And for him, his father passed away when he was 2 of melanoma. So I feel like he tapped into the fact that I lost my dad to cancer when I was 2 years old, which is, a pivotal time in your life. And he passed away. And I think he went into fear-based mode like crazy. So
which is interesting, even after seeing you not go into that mode.
I know.
But men are also wired different in some ways, lots of ways. But
yeah, he just was fear-based, and the doctor's like, food's not going to help, supplements aren't going to help, lifestyle isn't going to help this. And so it was really frustrating for me. It was awful to watch someone so strong at the time really just deplete in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's awful. That is. And your girls were young.
They were 10 and 7 when he died. Oof. Yeah. So that was also pivotal too, because I was worn out after when he died. And then I was like, okay, I'm a single mom now, and I'm going to need to raise these girls, and I need to raise them in a healthy way, not only, physically, but emotionally.
Yeah.
Emotionally, they are scared shitless. The rug was just pulled out from underneath them. And also me too. I was definitely scared, but I really did want to learn what it took to make sure these girls knew that it wasn't something that they would die from, cancer, that they were automatically going to get it. So that was what was beautiful. I went and got, also trained in some trauma therapy, and also my therapy helped with all of that. And I also went back to healthier eating because I had lost a little bit of it when he was sick and before he got sick.
When did nutritionists become your profession?
It was probably by 4 years after he passed away, because I went back to school 2 years after he passed away to an Eastern Western nutrition school. And I actually was asked by a bunch of restaurants to create a food program for them, M Cafe and Cafe Gratitude. Mm-hmm. And I just did it because I was in the advertising business, and their food was healthy and it was so easy to do. So I did my own marketing and advertising for them, and then put their food together. And I just realized, wow, this is fun. And also,
you don't have to do something you hate.
I saw how people were changing with the food, and how people were changing and weren't changing. Yeah. So I was communicating with them, and I am such a people person. So I was texting with them, is everything going okay? How are you feeling? And, people sometimes on the Cafe Gratitude cleanse, because it was a lot of sugar and it was vegan and they weren't used to it. I had to peel them off the ceiling. They were awful. M Cafe was a little different because it was cooked and, raw and all of that. It was a little more balanced. Mm-hmm. But going right from a cooked animal protein diet into a vegan diet, cold and all of that was hard. So I just started talking to doctors and figuring out what I could do to help them. And I had an assistant at the time who I adored and loved to cook. And she said, why don't we create our own food program? Yeah. I mean, you're already doing this for other restaurants. I did something for Erewhon. Yeah. I did something for Earth Bar at the airport. Yeah. It was really fun. And then we just started our own 10 years ago.
So I know, but not everyone might know, what is your own? What does that mean? And what does it entail?
So we cook and deliver cleanses in Los Angeles and the OC and out to Malibu and Thousand Oaks or the Valley. Every week we have 4 different cleanses. We had 1 at the time. It's soups and salads and tonics and a homemade protein bar and a bone broth or a vegan broth, fermented veggies, a latte. So it's a lot of food. I wanted people to have a lot of food, and I try and make sure that they have a lot of protein in their food too. It is plant-based, high in fiber. I make sure it's 60 grams of protein. So basically, and the fiber too is really important because people don't focus on fiber at all these days. But it's a 5-day, we deliver twice. It's organic, it's in glass, it's super clean, no inflammatory foods, no dairy, no sugar, might a little sugar in the bar, but that's about it. But, no processed stuff, no preservatives, no fillers. Like it's just real food that your body knows how to metabolize.
I mean, what's been the overall feedback, like very granularly?
Yeah. I mean, it's so wild because people say like, this is more food than I'm used to eating. Okay. But I'm losing weight and I'm sleeping better and my digestion is good. So that part about more food than I'm used to eating is very fascinating to me because maybe they're starving themselves a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Is what we do when we try to lose weight. And I didn't want that in their mentality. I want them to know that if they eat real food and plentiful of it, that they can digest it and metabolize it if it works for them. Some people, though, some foods, that even are healthy are not going to work for them.
Yeah.
But I want people to pay attention and slow down and really have, channel that into their intuition and be like, ooh, this tastes good. This feels good. I feel fantastic on this. The other thing is like, I want people to be like, I feel great. Not like, oh, I feel okay. I feel good. I want after 5 days, like, I feel amazing.
Yeah. Energized and from inner outer, like you can feel the way your body glows, right?
Exactly.
So talk to me about digestion. It's like my favorite topic of conversation and having 3 boys and a husband. That's all we talk about in our house is pooping. Right. So, it is so important. And to me, it's like, if you can understand your digestion, understand how that part of your body is functioning and working, you really have a sense of like how you are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in your core.
Yes.
So will you just talk to me about digestion, how you feel about its importance, how you can take care of it, what we aren't doing as a society, as a community, what we need to be doing?
Yeah, great question, because it is our core and it's where our intuition is and our instincts. So if it's not working, we're not going to be in tune and our instincts aren't going to be right on, which is very hard because we have amazing instincts. But I feel like it's such an easy thing to fix, but we've made it really complicated.
Yeah.
Right?
There's like too much, there are too many options at this point.
Totally. But stress is, I think, number one. When we get stressed, our digestive system completely shuts down. So that is crazy. And we're all stressed. Yeah. Especially nowadays, right? So, I mean, practicing, stress, de-stressing mechanisms, whether it's breath work, whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's just walking and being out in nature, or, just anything that you can do to de-stress is huge. And sleep is crucial, in that just resetting your body, getting enough sleep. 8 hours for women, people kind of give me a hard time for that. And 7 hours for men is really what we need.
And when you sleep.
Yes. Like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is when the body really resets. But, nobody goes to bed at 10 these days. So that's really important. And those are easy things, pretty much, and don't cost anything. The other thing is hydration. I talk about this.
I love
it. We just don't drink enough water, and we also don't hydrate enough. And I feel like we don't get minerals are really important for water to go into our cells. Magnesium and potassium and sodium and manganese and all those things. And we just don't have it in our soil and in our food. And if we do have it in our food, we're not really absorbing it digestion-wise. So I do love hydrating powders, and Ultima is one of my favorites that I've used for years.
Powders, so many in our, so many different, we have like the big tubes, the smaller tubes, the individual, go travel with them. We are complete converts to Ultima powder. Yes.
And I heard someone say the other day that those are just bogus, but
no,
I know. I don't, when you use it, and I've used it for like 5+ years. Yeah. It's a lifesaver.
It is. And I can tell you how I know it works because my whole life, I've spent a lot of time in altitude, and I could never figure out how to stay hydrated in altitude. It didn't matter how much water I drank. It didn't matter how I didn't drink anything with caffeine. Like, it didn't matter. And since I've introduced hydration powder into my diet, when I'm in altitude, I do not get affected by it in the same way. I'm not dehydrated in the same way I used to be. I know how to keep myself hydrated, or at least as well as I can. Yeah. And that to me is like how I know it is not bogus at all. It makes a difference.
It does. And you notice because you're not running to the bathroom constantly, because usually when we drink water, we're just peeing all the time and we're just peeing out the water. Instead, we're really absorbing it. And you notice when you travel out of the country or like to New York or far away,
any plane,
and you don't feel jet lagged too when you also take it with you. I mean, I dilute the Ultima as we talk about because it's a little sweet for me. It's really strong in the stevia department. And it does force me to drink more water. Like I put it in 32 ounces. I drink 2 of those a day. I mean, it's a godsend. Like, and I think it's a godsend for motility and digestion and all of that, because you're 2 to 3% dehydrated, your adrenaline and cortisol will start pumping out of your adrenals. So you really that's stress again, back to the stress mode. So hydration is important, then fiber. For some reason, people focus on carbs. I don't want to eat all the carbs because I want to lose weight. And they focus on protein these days. But fiber is crucial. And we just don't get enough because that is what helps move food through the digestive tract. And we need to, fully eliminate every day. And we should be fully eliminating multiple times a day. And that also gets people when I say that. But 2 would be like amazing. 3 is like exceptional, but most people don't do that. After a week of sometimes my digestion cleanse, I had a client who had constipation. And at the end, she was going 3 times a day. And she goes, this is what it feels like to go 3 times a day.
I feel so much lighter.
Exactly. So, I mean, food sits in our digestive tract and ferments and hangs out in there forever. It's gross.
It's so
you
gross.
open up a garbage can and you smell the garbage. Like that's what's happening in our digestive tract. So fiber is really important. I say minimum of 30 grams of fiber.
What are your favorite kinds of fiber?
It's shocking that people don't get that. So I love chia seeds. 2 tablespoons is 10 grams. A cup of raspberries is like 8.4 grams of fiber. I think a half a cup of white beans is 9 or 9.5 grams of fiber. A half a cup of avocado is 9. So there's quite a few, easy things to do to add the fiber into your diet. And even cauliflower and broccoli have fiber. There's quite a few great vegetables and foods that are easy to add in. So fiber is really crucial. And I feel like also what is important is that just keeping your hydrochloric acid, which is what helps you break down your food. Our digestive tract should be very acidic, not alkaline. So, because it's really important, because the acidity will kill off any virus, bacteria, or fungus that's coming in, which a lot does, toxins. So we want to keep that strong. And that is, not taking a lot of over-the-counter meds because that depletes it. And then the stress also depletes it. Our enzymes too are the same thing. We need to really keep our enzymes strong, but that's hard because they deplete like half after we're 30. But stress and over-the-counter meds do that.
How can you keep them up?
So that's what is like, you eat bitter foods are amazing, like arugula, radicchio, endive, kale. Those are all super helpful for enzymes. A lot of people, as they age, they do have to take enzymes, digestive enzymes. So depending on what's going on with them. But, and then probiotics, a lot of people say they're bogus too.
No, they're a game changer.
Right? So certain ones, most doctors give people very small dosages of probiotics.
Yeah.
So like 10 billion might be the most, like Align is something very popular over the years. Or Culturelle or one of the, the drugstore brands. But I give people 50 to 100 billion. And I feel like that's a huge game changer. So we need to replenish our microbiome. Our microbiome just gets destroyed with toxins, stress, over-the-counter meds, dehydration, all of it. So it's really important to, make sure if you are having digestive issues, to like maybe try a probiotic, try some enzymes, or try some bitter foods. But also what I love, if you are having digestive issues, I love doing like a GI map on people to get really a lowdown on what is going on in their gut. Is it fungus and candida or bacteria or viral issues? Now I'm testing people for everything. So I do love that. And Viome is another great program for digestive stuff.
Yeah, which Maverick, one of my kids did. You had him do the Viome test, which was fascinating.
I know.
It really just, one side of it just to show your deficiencies.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing. And what you're, you need. And then to me, it was like, I always tell people when they're having genetic testing, you have to do that alongside with a genetic counselor. You can't have genetic testing on your own because what are you going to do with that information? How do you read it? How do you make decisions? How do you know how to really interpret that into your life and your lifestyle and make some pretty major decisions based on, whatever comes back? Yeah. And I feel the same about that, about taking a Viome test. If you don't take it without a nutritionist like you, what do you do with that information?
Yeah.
And if you end up saying, okay, great, I'm deficient in this, I'm going to go run to the corner store and pick up these supplements, you're not actually helping yourself. There's, like we said, there's too many options.
Yeah.
You need to do it hand in hand with someone who's going to then help you figure out how to bring those things back up.
That. Yeah. And also the supplement market. I mean, it's $1 trillion business. I mean, it is, everyone's making a supplement, and there's such shitty, bad supplements on the market. So you're right. Most people are so overwhelmed. It's awful.
It is. One thing I want to go back to, which I found really interesting, which I've learned also through my kids, is I've always attributed stress to something very specific. When you're young, you're studying for a test and you're really stressed out because you're cramming to get the information into your head. Mm-hmm. As an adult, the stress that comes from, working and doing, and as you're in your earlier lifestyle of a go, go, go mentality. What I never really understood was that stress is also, or maybe even more so, like taking yourself out of your comfort zone, even if it's in a good way. So when you travel and when you switch time zones and when you don't sleep on the airplane and then you get to a hotel room that isn't your home and a bed that's not your bed and you're not eating your sort of normal cadence of meals, your body feels the stress. Yeah. And especially for women, how do we know? Because you don't poop. Right. I mean, how many of your friends have you talked? I mean, I talk about this, but said, I just had the most amazing trip to Rome and I didn't poop for 5 days, but it's fine. Like literally. Or I went to New York last week for 3 nights. I didn't poop, but eventually when I got back, I did. That's first of all disgusting. And second of all, but it's true. And I think it's from, and I think it's worse as you get older when you go off of your normal routine, but that creates stress in your body. So in addition to hydrating, do you have other tricks that you can do to help ward off that stress? Yeah,
the travel stress or the to being outside your comfort zone stress.
To move or, I have college age kids when they're, in a new place and they're making a new life and they don't have me there helping them. And the comforts of home, their body feels that stress and it does act out in different ways. Yeah.
I mean, the probiotics, I travel with them everywhere. And sometimes I double up or triple up on those probiotics because they really do help. Magnesium. So it is a crucial one. So taking that before bed, and that also maybe, doing.
But there's different kinds of magnesium,
there
right?
Are many different kinds of magnesium.
So what magnesium are you talking
for every
about?
Part of your body.
Yes.
So there is oh my God, there's so many good ones. Glycinate, citrate, and citrate is more for anxiety, but they all make you go to the bathroom. Okay. Yeah. So then there's a Bioptimizer has this brand that I love, and it has 7 different kinds of magnesium in it for the heart, for the brain, for the gut, digestion, for sleep, for the central nervous system, all that stuff. And I love that. It's 500 milligrams with 2 capsules before bed. So I feel like you can take up to 1,000, but people don't really know that. So a lot of times people think, oh, I'm taking 100 or 200, that's enough. But it isn't enough. So if they don't go to the bathroom, they need to up their magnesium a lot. And it's not harmful at all. Nothing is harmful about magnesium. It's just going to make you go to the bathroom more.
Yeah. Woohoo.
So I'm always like, magnesium is crucial. The probiotics are crucial. Taking the Ultima is crucial. Also I'm a big proponent of like short meditations, like Calm app or, Insight Timer or things on my phone that I'm constantly, really trying to, tap into when I'm flying or, I've landed somewhere and I feel stressed or I'm not sleeping, all of that. And then sleep too is like, I always have things that help me with my sleep.
Like what?
So melatonin is great I don't take it all the time, but I think it's wonderful when you're doing time zone differences. But also Bioptimizer just came out with this beautiful sleep supplement. Oh. Yeah. And it has glycine and L-theanine and like GABA and B6. And it doesn't have melatonin in it, which I love because I feel like I've taken a lot of melatonin because I had some insomnia. But that's fantastic. Like I always have something just to fall back on.
Yeah. Is that something important. You take every night or you only take?
I do now take it every night. Yeah. And I take it with L-threonate, this other magnesium type that is for your brain. Ooh. Now, I love this magnesium because a lot of my clients get migraines and I used to give it to them for their migraines, but it is for overthinkers and anxious people. So basically it goes directly to your brain and calms down your brain.
Would you take that in addition to the BioOptimizer magnesium that has all the many different kinds of magnesium?
I would. It might be too much for some people, and it might be perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, because it is it's a different magnesium, and I do love them together.
So one of the things I'm really focused on was preventive care, and all of this falls under that category 100%. But also seeing women at different stages in our lives and how we change and our bodies change, our hormone levels change, the way that we, digest, the way that we interact, like everything, right? Starting when you go through puberty and you go through the second puberty in your 20s, and then your 30s are, you're probably procreating, and then your 40s, you start to go into perimenopause and then menopause. And so just the way that our bodies internally are functioning is constantly changing.
Right.
How do you address that? Or what do you recommend beyond really knowing yourself? Like what have you seen that you found to be interesting to you? And then how you've helped women get through that stage? These stages.
Yeah. I love all of the stages because I love being able to help teenagers and young women who are having, issues with skin or digestion or hormones, and then, all the way up to menopause. So I basically have been doing blood work now on everybody.
Yeah.
So I do a full panel of blood work, and a lot of my OBs are like, why are you doing, young adults blood work? But you cannot believe the amount of things that we're seeing, in their blood work, that where their estrogen could be too low or their testosterone's too low, and because of stress and because of, as phthalates and BPA and all that stuff, is affecting our endocrine disruptors are affecting our skin and the water bottles and plastic. And we have been brought up with that stuff, right? So makeup and body care products and all of it. So a lot of people don't know about that still yet. And their hormones are being disrupted at a very young age. So I can easily talk to them about trying to get clean makeup and go the cleaner route. Also, I can help them just with any kind of nutrients that they're deficient in. And also the stress as well, getting them de-stressed, because that can set off the endocrine system, is your adrenals, your thyroid, your hormones. And I do that with all the women of all stages. So I look at their adrenals, I look at their cortisol levels, I look at their thyroid, everything about it, and I look at all their hormones. And there's been something really fascinating that's happened in the last year that I've been doing this. The DHEA and pregnenolone is a steroid hormone that comes out of their adrenals. And basically, it helps boost your own estradiol, testosterone, progesterone.
Okay.
And pregnenolone also helps boost your thyroid. So it helps your endocrine system. The DHEA helps with estradiol and testosterone. So I've been seeing massively low levels of DHEA and pregnenolone with women. And there are supplements on the market that you can take to boost your own hormones. So I've been helping these young women, get their hormones back on track by giving them a little DHEA and pregnenolone, or both, or one or the other.
That's interesting.
Same with menopause, like pre, and they're going into it, and we test it, and it can ward off the symptoms.
So I just had this incredible conversation with a gynecologist. She's an OBGYN, but has now shifted her entire practice to focus on women over the age of 40.
Okay.
And we had a long conversation about hormone replacement therapy because, it was so taboo for a long time because of a study that we know back in the early 2000s has been completely debunked that hormone replacement therapy gives you cancer.
Yeah.
But that this idea that you don't have to wait until, this magic night before you go into menopause and you stop having your period, that the hormones are more than just period regulation. They're more than just our cycles. They're everything, there's so much and they affect so much. And by taking, hormone replacement therapy or by taking supplements, you're doing it in this natural way as opposed to chemically trying to rebalance yourself, which may control your cycle when you're younger, which might be important because you're birth control, et cetera. But there's such benefits to addressing it, in my opinion, young, so that one, you understand your body, and two, you get yourself under control. And for factors that are out of our control when you're young, which I have to imagine has better long-term effects.
Well, I'm sure she told you what the effects are. I mean, they're like tremendous, like bone health.
Bone health, your brain. I mean, everything.
And your heart.
Sexual health, like everything. Yeah.
I mean, estrogen is so crucial for a woman to feel womanly, right?
Yes.
And progesterone for like sleep and for anxiety and testosterone for just vigor and drive.
Yes.
Like, I went on them when my husband died at 46 because I was so stressed out and I had some cysts and they ablated them and then I went into menopause.
Yeah.
I've been on HRT for 18 years now.
Yeah.
And I haven't really changed my dosage. It's just been low dosages. Never had menopause symptoms, totally changed my life, always pretty much felt great.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan and a big believer. And I think that, I think it's a lifesaver. And it's hard to find really good doctors out there that can do it right. That's what's hard.
It is. I mean, for lots of different reasons.
Right.
And that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
But it is. It definitely is.
Because sometimes they put them on estradiol, but they don't put them on progesterone and testosterone. Or, I think really it's crucial, depending on the stage you're at. All three, as you are in menopause, are really important.
Also, this, you can take blood, but if you don't have the in-depth conversation around it, because even that is a snapshot, right? So if you just test someone's blood and you're like, oh, you're down in this, but if you're not listening and really hearing and asking the right questions, you're not going to get a full picture and then thus not be able to diagnose and then help.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because this woman the other day, I had a client and she was on estradiol and progesterone, and those numbers looked really decent, fairly decent. Testosterone didn't look so decent. And she's like, I'm just like, I have no motivation. Like I can't, it's hard to get out of bed. I just like don't feel myself. And I'm like, have you talked to your OB about this? And she's like, yeah. And she said, my testosterone looks fine. And I'm like, well, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It could be better. Yeah. That's what's so wild is.
Yes. Looks fine compared to what?
Exactly.
Compared to what the other 47-year-old woman came in earlier?
Absolutely.
Well, that has nothing to do with you.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. It's like, it's so important to be in an optimal state with the blood work too, or just feeling optimal, both things.
Yeah.
Like if you're not optimal, there is something off.
Yeah.
And I always feel, honestly, as you know, we can do something about it.
Yeah, you can. I think also you can take control of almost everything, right? And you can learn almost everything and then do with that information what you please. Things happen. We both know this. Things happen that are out of your control. You might have had some part to play in it, but things happen, right? Yeah. But if you know that you are, using all the information that you can gather from really honest, true, professional, scientifically backed sources to live optimally, then at least God forbid something happens in your life, like you did everything you could and you lived really well. I mean, to me, that's like the heart of it.
I know, I do too. And I wish more people felt that way. I think people are waking up. COVID really did a number on people.
Yes.
And I think that people are realizing, that they are living longer and want to feel vibrant and energized and with their grandchildren and all of that, like I do.
Yeah.
And I mean, as I always say, I mean, I honestly feel better than I did in my 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
So to know what I know and to do what I do is so fun because I just feel like, wow, we can feel great. Like everybody that comes to me is not feeling great.
Yeah.
And they just are looking for, it could be an easy solution too.
Yeah.
So it could be just hydration or better eating or, a few nutrient supplements. I love doing nutrient deficiency tests too.
Yeah.
Then I actually really do know what they're deficient in, not just throwing a bunch of supplements at them too.
Yeah. Well, what you do is incredible. And the fact that you went down this road and educated yourself and then, I mean, not just created a business and a brand out of it, but truly help other people, I think like what more could you ask for? It's pretty amazing. And you're amazing.
Thank
you.
I
love talking to you. If there's besides hydration,
right.
If there's one, or sleep, two biggies. If there's something else maybe minimally that you would say to people almost of all ages, what would it be?
To help you feel better?
Yeah.
I say this all the time. I mean, it's the self-love part.
Yeah.
I think when you really can tap into loving yourself, because we're so hard on ourselves, and tapping into your heart and just realizing, you're enough and you're plentiful and perfect just the way you are, can really calm you down and, make you feel good about yourself and your life. I mean, sometimes it's easier done than not, sometimes that takes a lot of work to get there. And it took me a ton of work to get there.
It takes a lifetime most times. It does. You can always get better.
But I feel like we can exhale when we really do feel like we're in our body and we do love ourselves.
Yeah. To me, that goes along with what the doctor asked you. Are you happy? And I think I get the chills. I almost want to cry. I think that's that, right? Are you happy?
Yeah.
Do you love yourself? When you look in the mirror, like, are you seeing you? Or who else are you seeing that you either think you look like or think you act like or think you should be? And I agree. I think that's beautiful. And that's really what it all comes down to. It does.
And you're not always going to love yourself. No. You're not always going to be, I don't want people to think like, oh, you got to love yourself all the time. And you got to eat right all the time. You can't, no, absolutely not. There's no perfection here. But, just like if you can get to a place more often than not. Yeah. And also to be okay with not being okay. Yeah. Is like just ways.
Sit in it for a minute.
Yeah. Just ways to be able to relax yourself and exhale.
Yeah.
The exhaling is huge. I see people, they don't take a breath and they don't exhale.
Yeah. There's something fabulous about it. You also see my brother. Yeah. I have another family member who I love dearly and deeply. And, he was in the Navy for a long time. Yeah. And, there's that, box breathing. And really, imagine that like in the most stressful of moments, these mostly guys know how to, or been taught how to inhale and exhale to calm themselves, straight down through the body. I know. I think about that actually. I'm like, that's to me, like, yes, exhale, let it out. Right. Not just inhale, but really let it go. Mm-hmm. And I do think it's a lifetime's worth of work to feel really, truly, not just confident, but, good with yourself. Yeah. I do think it's a great thing about getting older. I think a lot of the BS goes away. You focus a lot less on it, at least assuming you're continuing to evolve as you get older. Yeah. But I love that. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I think it also depends on what's gone on in people's lives too, as, early stage of life, if they've been like, there's a lot of trauma that happens in early years. And that also is hard for, we know that 95% of how we function is our subconscious. So that's a hard one. You're just kind of reiterating some of the trauma that you don't think you're thinking about, but you are. And 5% is conscious. That always blew my mind. Like, we're only 5% conscious. That is wild. But, it does. It takes a lot to like let go of that subconscious or tap into that subconscious and figure out what isn't working for you too. Yeah. I always love that as well because, that's important. I think, when my favorite books, Radical Remission and Radical Hope. And it is all about like a lot of her modalities of how people heal from cancer were, emotional and stress and their foundation of trauma, like releasing that. It was like, those were 7 of them. And then the 8th one, I think, was food and supplements and exercise. And it just always like really stuck with me. And also Anita Morjami, who was, do you know her? She she was in the hospital dying and realized like tumors, I think, all over her body and realized she didn't want to die and, was in a coma and came back and has been fine ever since. You know, so it's like, because mentally she willed herself back and realized she needed to work on things mentally. And, she was able to really get into a better state of mind. And I love how all the options we have now, Joe Dispenza, and, I know, all the beautiful people that are teaching us to do that. Because now more than ever, we need.
Yes. Right? And understanding that it's not one thing or the other. Yeah. It's not like I'm choosing science, therefore I'm not going to think about the mental aspect, or I'm only choosing to go, a non-traditional route. It's this ability to merge and to understand that you can make different things helpful for you at different times. Yeah. And honestly, being able to have both is what can, allow us to really be healthy. Yeah. Right? And stay healthy or get healthy. Right. You can't sort of choose one or the other.
No, they're both really important to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also to be in relationships with people that you know, really do lift you up and make you feel good. All of those things are really crucial. Who we pick to surround ourselves with.
Honestly, in this last week, I've had a conversation with you, with a gynecologist who works specifically with women over 40, with a breast oncologist. And that is the thread that all three of you have said. It's, you know, all the things that you're talking about, yes. And then that end comment, which is be around people who lift you up, who bring you joy. It really makes a difference, especially for women, and having those relationships. It's a game changer, especially as you get older. It really is.
It is. I mean, I've tried to instill that in my girls. So, you know, at a younger age, because I didn't have that instilled in me in the 20s, but I'm amazed at how well they function, and they surround themselves with, you know, just a few friends that are just so important to them, that do make them feel good, and really do let go of the ones that don't. And it's like, it's so crucial. I didn't learn that till way later in life.
My mom wasn't good at that. She was not good at that. She had a lot of people around her who didn't fill her cup.
Yeah.
And for some reason at a young age, I was like, that's not how I want to be. And she learned later, and she had cancer when she was young. So I think it sort of forced her to be like, yeah, this is not worth my time.
Right.
But for some reason, I've always been that way. And there were times where I sort of got put down for it. Like, you're not social enough. You don't have enough friends. I'm like, no, I have the people that I love. And those people, most of them have been with me my whole life. Like, those are my people.
That's so great that you, like, though, had enough wherewithal to.
It was. I have no idea.
Stick with it.
And it was completely, it wasn't like I consciously made that choice. But I think so. Well, thank you so much, Elissa. This is always the best and so much fun.
I love being with you. I wish I was with you more.
I know. But you're very busy. But thank you.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.